What's going on, Utility Road? Today is Tuesday. To be exact, it's the last Tuesday of the month. And if it's the last Tuesday of the month, that means it's time for a first row Intersation panel. Whoo, y'all don't know, tonight is about to be fire. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. Tonight's topic is resolving mommy and daddy issues. Now, I don't want y'all to be in here lying, so I ain't gonna ask anybody if they have mommy and daddy issues outside of the panel. But if you feel the need to share the truth, share the truth. But I'm gonna be the first one to say my parents, they blessed me with some things that I hope I have shedded over the years and probably got some more shedding to do. So with that, tonight I have 5 panel guests. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. First, we'll start off with from my left, because I'm looking at the computer screen. From my left, we got Key Bryant of Bryant Gonzalez. Bryant Gonzalez Realty. If you could say what's up to the people, Key, and introduce yourself, please.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first row. Thank y'all for showing up. This is Key Bryant, like Rose said. Bryant Gonzalez Real Estate. Just here to, really grow and help you guys out and finding some solutions when it comes to those of you that have mommy and daddy issues. I know I got daddy issues, and that's what's up.
Hey, preach the truth.
Yeah. But yeah.
All right. Well, next we got on my second to left, we got Brother Gab from Gab Talk Media. Gab, if you could say hello and peace to the people, please.
Hey, peace, fam. It's Gab from Gab Talk Media. Here to make a contribution to such a serious topic. Some things that, each sector of the community probably has to deal with. And I definitely have had, I don't know anybody that hasn't had some kind of mommy and daddy issues, especially since we know that we're not perfect. It's just a matter of to what extent, to what extreme that we have mommy and daddy issues. Yeah. So I appreciate y'all inviting me. Hey, let's go.
Hey, I appreciate you coming, fam. That's one thing. I always enjoy your perspective and your demeanor. And so I'm happy to have you on the panel on the first row, brother. Next, we have my good friend who has done an intersation as well. I forgot to mention Key has done an intersation previously, but this one did a special intersation with me called Opposite Sex Friendships. My friend Jennifer Chambers, I refer to her as JC, but you guys are probably going to have to refer to her as Jen because y'all don't know her like that. Could you introduce yourself to the people, please, Jen?
Yes. I'm excited to be on the First Rows panel today. It's a very exciting topic and one that I hope to learn and grow from. I'm Jennifer Chambers, and I am here to be a student and hopefully maybe a teacher to some.
All right. I like it. And then we got the fan favorite over here on mute, about to unmute himself. I feel like I got to start getting some music for this man before he comes onto the scene. We got my cousin Moses Jenkins. Could you please introduce yourself to the people for those who don't know yet?
Cousin Mo, man, I'm a God-fearing Christian, man. I still believe in Black Jesus. Hallelujah. Now, you know me, your resident Morehouse man. I'm a veteran. I'm also a father of 2 and a husband. I love being on the first row. Intersations, man. Love being on that first row. I love being close enough to the action to where I can really make some strong observations. And this topic is going to be a phenomenal one for us to do so. So peace to those in the chat already. Peace to those that catch it in the restream. You know what to do. Hit that like button. And I'm ready to get started. So, hey, Taralyn.
All right. So he's sending the shot over to you. The last but definitely not least, the lovely Miss Taralyn, Coach T, Coach.Taralyn. If you could please introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, everybody out there. Taralyn Singletary here. I'm excited. Look at who I'm sitting with on the first row tonight. I'm excited. Black excellence. This is going to be good.
True.
Coach.Taralyn here. I've been here before, and mommy daddy issues. Ooh, this is going to be good. I got a couple of my own, but I'll save it. I'll save it for the conversation to get into it.
Fair enough. So, as you guys know, Intersations is still relatively new. I'm going to say it's new until we get through our first year of Intersation. Then after that, you're just going to have to know what it is. It's a word that I created. So what is Intersation? Intersation is when you take interview and conversation, and when you put the two together, you get what I call Intersation. So in my life, I'm very fortunate, as you could probably see by this panel, to have a very diverse network of friends, a very diverse network of acquaintances, coworkers, family. I mean, you name it, like, I forget what that song is, but you name it, I got it. But in the conversations that I have with these friends and these family members, our conversations tend to go from the surface level into much more deeper and meaningful things to our lives, to where they promote us to ask ourselves questions about what does that mean to us? Why do we think the way we think? How do we plan to make the next moves towards our vision? So Intersations is my means of literally opening a lens into those conversations so that we can have more of a group to be able to understand, and not understand, but to be able to experience the growth that I've been experiencing for years with these diverse dynamic friends, for all of us to be able to experience that. So I want you guys to feel free, though you will see all of us talking and engaging visually. Realize that this is an open conversation for you to interact, for you to be involved, for you to contribute nuggets, for you to ask questions. And if you really want to get the most out of it, I'm going to tell you right now, for you to be authentic and open and transparent. So that way, any question that maybe our insights may provide or others in the chat can provide, we can all address it and hopefully leave here with some solutions tonight. So with that being said, we are going to jump straight into tonight's topic, resolving mommy and daddy issues. As with every Intersation, I like to start off with the very same question. My question, Gab, I'm gonna put you on the spot because this is your first time on the first row, and I want to welcome you officially on the spot. The first question that I always like to ask my guests are, what does this topic of resolving mommy and daddy issues mean to you?
The first thing when you called in to talk for me to, join in on a conversation like this was the reality of the mommy and daddy issues. I'm 50 years old. Let me just put that out there. 2 kids, been married 25 years. And so, of course, with that experience, you start to see things you see things about yourself that are not, that are underdeveloped or, well, I'll leave it like that, just are underdeveloped, and you wonder what are the things you miss. So you begin to be, the older you get, what I found is that you're more and more honest with yourself. I've done a great deal of kind of reading, kind of the self-help kind of books and whatnot, trying to figure out what are those missing pieces. Like, why do I seem to be so stuck in this area? And so some of the books, I would have never thought to look for mommy and daddy issues. I love my mom. I love my dad, God rest his soul. But I noticed that, every book that I read that was a self-help book by some, PhD, that, some behavioral type of specialist, has always pointed to things of your past of which your parents are greatly a part of. And so I saw some stuff, that I thought was pretty relevant to my life, and so immediately when you start talking mommy and daddy issues, that I think of myself. But then I have 2 children, and I notice how that cycle, it really doesn't stop. I felt, and I know I'm going in too deep now, but that's what it means to me. It's the issues of my life, and the issues that are unresolved because, your childhood is that developmental point. That's the place where you overcome certain fears, and there's windows of opportunities in our lives. And sometimes we're not best situated to take advantage of what we need to take advantage of to become our best versions of ourselves. So, and the cycle continues, and I'll kind of drop it and let somebody else respond.
All right.
Thank you.
No, Brother Gab, I definitely appreciate what you're saying. That area of life where you look one side as the child, and now you're looking now at the other side as the parent, and you're realizing how malleable our children are, how malleable we were as children, and starting to try to resolve some of those issues that didn't get worked out in the process of transitioning from that child into that man that you are today. Now, I like what you're saying, so I rock with that. The next person I want to bring on, let's go with JC. You're sitting to the right of Gab on the video, so let's go with you. What does the topic of resolving mommy and daddy issues mean to you?
Ooh, well, it's hard to go after Gab, but I'm gonna try. For me personally, when I thought about this topic, for me it meant personally stop allowing trauma-based traditions to remain in your family. We have what's called traditions, things that we do. I do it because my mama did it, my daddy did it. This is the way it's always been done. However, it's important to start questioning some of those decisions and stop operating in dysfunction. And to me, it's important to know why you make the decisions that you make. And that way, when you're teaching the lessons to your children or your grandchildren, you've really thought it through and you're not just operating in tradition because it's always been the way it's done. So for me, it's analyzing and doing some critical thinking and really looking inside and inward to ensure that the decisions that you're making are affecting people positively and they're not created and passed down in dysfunction.
I like that trauma-based traditions. You know, we always think traditions, mama's, sweet potato pie or, peach cobbler during the holidays, but there's some traditions that have definitely been handed down that I could definitely do without a second or a first serving of. So I feel it. The next person I want to bring on, Brother Key, if you could touch us with what this topic means to you on resolving mommy and daddy issues, please.
Yeah, no problem. What it means to me is really digging deep into your child self. And I say that because it's a term that my wife and I use pretty frequently. We talk about what it was like when you were a child. What were those things that you developed rather from the presence of your parents or the absence of your parents? And how did that affect you as a child? And I think that a lot of times we revert to that in our adulthood. Rather, we are trying to create certain habits, or we have certain habits that we develop from a child, from the things that we were experienced to, or the absence thereof, and the importance of that, of who you are as a person, being self-aware. So that's basically what this topic means to me. Really is about getting to know yourself better, being more aware of who you are as an individual, what are things that are innate, what are things that are habits that you didn't intend to develop. I mean, there's many times that we look back and we go, oh man, I'm acting just like my pops, or I'm acting just like my mom, and you never intended to because you hated it when you were a child, right? Or you hated it as a teenager. You're like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? And you're acting just like it. And it always ends up being something that's not intentional, right? So I think that this is something that also has to do with growth as an individual. We talk about being self-aware. I'm someone that really believes in growth. I think that you're not growing, you're dying. So I always want to look for ways to grow. And this is something that I think is really vital and important to not just my life, but others that might not know that they actually have mommy and daddy issues.
Right. Because, everybody black, but that ain't my breath that stinks. Sorry, sir. Sorry, ma'am. Today it's your day. All right. I appreciate that. Taralyn, I see you back on the video chat. Go ahead and chime in. What does this topic mean to you?
This topic means to me pretty much standing in your own truth and your own personal identity. I think with age, you get to a space where you start to begin to be comfortable with separating yourself, as Jennifer was saying, from those traditions. So much of what everyone was saying I can relate to. But I think what stands out most for me is when you're breaking those traditions and moving yourself away from those things, finding your own personal identity and being okay with knowing what to pick up that you grew up with and what's okay to lay down, and now form who you are as an individual, who you're going to be as a parent, colleague, friend, all of those different things. Sometimes it's kind of hard to unravel some of what you were brought up with because it's so deeply ingrained and embedded in your DNA. You're just in some ways indoctrinated to a lot of different points with your parents' idealisms about life and spirituality and relationships and everything. So at some point, for me, shedding some of what I grew up with from my mom and dad, shedding some of that, for me, it just sticks out personal identity and being okay with who you are and being okay with parts of who you are being in opposition to what you were raised to believe you should be. So that's what it means for me.
I like that term, shedding. I'm going to dive into that a little bit later. Last but not least, the fans' favorite, Cousin Mo, what you got for the topic tonight?
Mr. Controversy got a little salt to throw on there, man. So, here's how I see it. It is pretty similar to Taralyn, so I think mine is rather tame tonight. So it's that ability to recognize and understand the influence that our parents had, their expectations on our lives. So we acknowledge that and we kind of understand a little bit. We don't know it all, but we can at least get to the point of acknowledging it, but still being able to walk our own journey. So that's when when you're resolved it. So you understand there was some influence back in the day. They made some decisions. They gave you access to people who had an impact in your life and situations and education and such. And they could have protected you and they could have preserved you. And in many cases you grow up, and if it's the bad things, then they failed. If it's the good things, then we applaud them. But whatever it is, that influence, we can understand how it impacted us. And now we can acknowledge it, and we can still use that to our benefit, to our gain, while we're on our journeys today.
All right, no, I like that. There, you got to take the good with the bad. You can't separate seasoning and salt. That's what I tell people sometimes. Actually, I just made that up. No, I tell people that sometimes. No, I like what everybody's saying as far as what it means to them. The nutrients, the shedding, the recognition, the addressing. And really for me, in a lot of ways, that's what this topic means to me. It's really about not just looking at the foundation of who we are in our adult state, but really analyzing that foundation and trying to correct the cracks and the fissures and the imperfections in it. Now, that doesn't mean you have to live this pristine life and be like, yeah, I'm issue free. Yeah, you're probably lying, or there's just an issue you don't know about yet. But from the perspective of the mommy and daddy issues, if we can resolve as many of those issues as possible, I think it gives us the ability to put our best foot forward. It gives us the ability to have less conflict in the relationships where there's disagreement. This is one of the reasons why I brought Gab onto the show, because I've watched him in conflict through YouTube, being able to see how he interacts and be able to listen to people's perspective without having to feel the need of jumping into combat with them to change who they are. I wish I had that characteristic the way you have it, because when we're face to face, that is when I'm probably most combative. But it's because, for myself, some of those issues that I have yet to resolve are issues of combat and physical violence and things of that nature. So that's what it means to me, that looking at that foundation, identifying that foundation, and then in the world of technology, reprogramming some of the behaviors that have been hardwired into us, kind of removing the old and bringing in new life, new blood. So that's what it means for me. I hope everybody enjoyed that very easy question, because we're about to start rapid fire. We're going to be on for about an hour and a half tonight, and then when everybody on the East Coast has to go to sleep, because we're all in different time zones. We didn't even tell everybody where they're at, but we got people all the way from the west, but that's where we're at. So the next question I want to ask, and all questions that I ask, I feel free as the panel to jump in, give your piece, listen, or whatever it may be. But I'm not going to direct any questions tonight at anybody specifically. But the first question I want to ask, open up to anybody who wants to jump in. How much do you believe that these issues are created by an example that our parents set versus the absence of our parents and or a parent? JC, I seen your face. Go ahead.
I mean, that's a great question. I don't even know where to begin with that, so I'm gonna let Taralyn start, because I believe I'm trying to formulate how I'm going to respond. So I'll go next.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit of both. It's really about perception and perspective. If there's a parent in the home that is modeling, let's say there can be detached parents, or some parents, for example, I had a very extremely insecure father, very insecure and very chauvinistic. So the things that he modeled in the home for us, especially as girls, being girls under an insecure, chauvinistic man, it's a heck of an experience. So those things modeled in the home for me, when I would talk to some of my friends who had absentee fathers in their life, they would love to trade spaces with me, so they think. But from my perspective, sometimes it would have been more helpful for him not to be there than to have experienced some of the emotional pain and some of the insecurities that came with being put down just because I was born female. You know, so for someone else, well, at least your dad was there. Well, the body necessarily being there doesn't mean that he's necessarily connected to you. So I think it's kind of, you kind of want what you don't have, you know, so some would say, well, at least he was there. But I would say, well, if he wasn't, then yeah, I would have gotten to, I would have had to imagine what it would have been like if he were there, but then maybe I wouldn't have had a lot of some of the more challenging issues that I had to go through and that I had to learn to shed as I went on. So I think that it's up to each child how they perceive the situation that they're in, the type of impact that they're going to have. And I think either way, whether there's a parent that's absentee or there's a parent that's there, male or female, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be a space where the person could have done better. They're not perfect. So I don't think there's any way to avoid children having issues based on their experience, because we're just experiencing our parents living their adult lives and making their decisions the same way our children experience us. Throughout that experience, things are not going to go exactly the way the child would have wanted, or maybe even the way the parent planned. There's going to be some damage there, or so I don't necessarily want to say damage because it's a strong word. Yeah, could be damage. There's going to be some damage there. And folks, it's some things that people are going to have to overcome. But I think that both are contributing factors to dysfunction, to challenge. I don't think there's any way of getting around that.
You know, one of the things you just mentioned that I didn't think even I thought about is the imagination. Our imaginations act as interpreters to our experiences. And so sometimes when that parent is absent, you can imagine that they are the best parent ever. And every day they are thinking about you and doing sweet things for you that you just happen to never see. But on the other side of that, our imagination can sometimes lead us to believe that our parents were tyrants. And I mean, I know for me, I thought my dad was just like, dang, why are you always so grumpy and mad and mean? But then I started as an adult looking at some of the things I was doing. It's like, dang, how come you didn't just kill me and sweep me under a rug? Because I'm like, dang, you did some things, Billy, as a child that were not easy to ingest as a parent, especially as a young parent who is still trying to learn their way in parenthood and adulthood at the same time. So,
and then also too, I have to share, I got to see both sides of it, because my father was married before he married my mother. So I have my two older brothers, and in their mind, when my father got married to my mother, he pretty much, the relationship that he had with them when they were younger was because of my mom, pretty much. But he was one of those type of men where the woman that he was with, that's where his interest would lie with the children and his life and everything. So my older brothers had it made up in their mind about what they thought our life was like and the type of father that he was to us. So from their perspective, because he really wasn't active in their life like he was in ours, or so they thought, they had it made up in their mind, this type of life that we had with him and this father that he must have been to us, and he definitely wasn't that to them, only for us to get older and for them to figure out that, well, I mean, yeah, he was a body in the house, right, but he was no more active with us than he was with you. Right. He was just in the same space. So actually, we were both looking at each other's situations. We're thinking, you know, man, they got it made because they don't have to deal with this stuff every day. And they're thinking, man, they have it made because he's over there with them all the time. So because I got to actually live and see both sides close up, it's just all going to be on that particular child and their experience. That's it. Could come from either way.
Can I chime in with you?
Chime on in, Cousin Mo.
There's some very concrete things that I see in my mind when I'm looking at mommy and daddy issues. How they handle conflict, high stress situations, alcoholism, or do they smoke? behaviors, more or less. But even the intimacy levels, how they engage. Are they loud spoken? Are they soft? Are they, are they a mediator? Like Brother Gab, he has the patience and long suffering, almost even of, like an elder. I never would have known he was 50, but there's some deeper ones too, though. What do they consider a betrayal? How do they demonstrate respect and earning the respect of others, or do they feel entitled? And jealousy or insecurities, any of these issues or these what red flag symbols, I would attribute to their relationship or their expectation of a relationship that they may have had with their parents, how they treat them to this day if they're still here, or how they talk about their upbringing and how they grew up, some of their experiences. So those are some of the tangible things that I look at. And for that mind, I think they're universal. I think that they would touch whether it was an absenteeism or whether they were there in hardworking, or whether they were there in alcoholics, whether they were absentee but they sent the check, or they were never there and only had my imagination to kind of fuel what I expected or what I thought my life could have been like. Whether it created an immediate response while I was younger, or whether it was that delayed response, whether there were things that were allowed to happen to me that were just heinous. What is it? Like sexual abuse, or violent episodes, young gang members and things, whatever it may be, and how it was projected at a younger age or even today, and the ability to hold a job or to pay bills on time, and what we consider responsible. A lot of that can still be contingent, but I think they're universal messages when I see it. So
I like that. I like what you have to add. Anybody else want to add to this? Gab, I seen you had unmuted your mic in the beginning. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah.
You sound kind of far away, Gab, a little. I don't know if that's just me.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Is this better?
Ooh, there we go.
Yep.
I can hear you now, brother.
All right. The absence of my thing was more absence for me. My mother was very present. I grew up in the household with my mom until I was 9, and then a stepdad situation. But with black men, for us, it's always seemed to be pretty distant for most of me and the kids of my neighborhood, and very few that had the direct hands-on experience with their dads. And mine was like, go out there for Christmas, you go out there for the summer, and it was love, and I appreciated, him contributing to my existence. But it wasn't a lot of days where he showed maybe like a direct interest in my life. You know what I mean? Like where you set aside time, almost like, women kind of go through this now with a lot of men, where we might not like plan a date, or have the kids go over to the mom's house, plan to do the whole plan, don't do just kind of part of it. So I've never like seen that done. So it caused me this trickle down effect. Like I don't know men like that. And it sounds like really weird. Like it would seem like, well, dude, you've been in enough dates by now, before you got married, and you've been married 25 years. You should know how to do that now. And it's still a task. It's a special thing when I get up and do the whole thing, the whole date.
Mm-hmm.
It's very matriarchal coming up. The women took care of like kind of everything. And so I would say for my father, not, this is, not picking on my dad, but it's like, in terms of what I didn't learn, he was a great person. Like I like my father a lot. I love my dad. And but in terms of the action of love, the quality of the love, I think is lacking. And I'm gonna take it a step further and say that I found myself after re-examining myself pretty much following the same pattern. There's some daddy issues that and even after you see it clearly for yourself, fixing it is still challenging.
No, I understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, honestly,
I definitely understand that aspect of, you can see the problem as clear as day in front of you. However, for some reason, course correcting around or away or through the problem is not as easy as it may seem. It's not as systematic as it may seem. So no, I definitely understand that aspect of not having that that role. I was present. He was a provider at times, and other times he wasn't. But I learned a lot about isolation from my father. He would isolate himself out in the shed. And so kind of like with your household, Carolyn, he was there, but he was in this room outside in the shed making fishing lures. And there were probably things that he could have taught me, even about fishing, that I probably still don't know today and not interested in knowing at this point. But there are those lessons that you feel like from at least from a man's perspective that you would want your father to teach you. And unfortunately, in some of the aspects, I had to go outside of my household to get other men mentors or other male mentors that were men to help guide me and nurture me into the right path. And I've missed a lot of lessons, but I'm still trying to do the best that I can. Is there anybody else that wants to add on to this before I move on to the next question?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's kind of twofold. It's the absence, and it's also the presence or the example that was in front of you. So with me, my father he wasn't around at all. He was probably around for until I was like the age of 6. It was kind of like a psych. Type of thing. Like, I'm here for you right now. I'm playing with you, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm gone.
Right. I always say y'all playing ninja. Poof.
Right. It was like a hide and go seek that never ended. Like I never found it. So looking at that though and understanding his situation, from other, family members, that he wasn't really in a good position to be a father. I think about if he was there and the examples that he was going to show in front of me, how that could have been more detrimental for me. Rather we're talking about drug habits to, just not being a good husband, maybe, some violence here and there. I mean, it could have been all types of stuff that I experienced as a child if he was in the household. At the same time, still trying to understand dealing with the absence of everything, and especially being a child where, he was present at one point and then all of a sudden gone. So it's like, well, what happened? Was never told the story completely, but because of that, you start thinking, as you grow up, why am I this way? Is there something that was, that I've taken up, innately from him, rather, genetics or whatever the case may be, right? Because I hear the saying all the time, my mom will say, oh, you have the same demeanor as your father, or you're charismatic like your father, you do this like your father. And I'm like, he's never been around for me to understand that. So what else is there? What are things that are natural within me that actually come from him, and wanting to understand that, right? So that absence has kind of, left a big question mark of not just why weren't you around, but almost who am I, in a sense, right? Like, because I could look at my mother, I could see how she raised us, how strong of a woman she was, raising 5 children on her own and really going out there and doing the best she possibly could. And I can see her traits. I could see where I might, emulate her in certain ways. But then there's another side of me that I'm like, where did I get this from? And I'm just assume that it came from my father.
No, I get that, definitely. There's a couple of things I want to bring into the chat really quick, or in from the chat really quick. It looks like Omega Black said, I wish these types of outlets were available during my teenage years. My father and I definitely had our battles back then. I salute you, First Row, for creating this very important conversation. I salute you for tuning in, brother. So I appreciate you. Also, we have Black Heights, who says, if you get angry at your parents for simply being who they are, you are only getting angry at yourself, as the personality traits are within yourself that you dislike. And I think that goes to say what you were just talking about, Key. Let's see. Somebody was talking to Omega Black. And then lastly, we have Black Heights again says, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And parents need to realize that every experience with their child is a program that is written and stored in the child's history memory. True. Lastly, it looks like John Doe just said something here. I figure any man who is willing to take the time to teach you something that will build and strengthen your character, or something that will make you less dependent on others, is a father figure. True story. A lot of us have, especially in the hood, a lot of us had those father figures, but not always the father who was our biological father. So with this next question, I want to move towards, I want to start off with you, JC, since you didn't give anything for that first one, since you jumped out of it. But then the next question that I want to ask is, what are some of the challenges? Gab kind of talked about some of the challenges that he has with planning dates. We'll just use that from what he shared. But what are some of the challenges that arise from not addressing the issue of the mommy and daddy issues that are left unresolved in your life?
That's a loaded question, my friend. The issues the mommy daddy issues that you have that are unresolved will eventually manifest. You may not see them right away. You may not even recognize them, but eventually they will manifest. And for different people and for different children, based on their perspective of their childhood, based on their experience, based on their emotional scarring, it manifests differently and in different ways. For me, personally, it showed up in looking for love, or let's say mistaking love, or mistaking violence for love. In my household, it was, there was a lot of violence, and that became the norm. So much so that with depression as a very young adult, that if there wasn't violence, there was no passion. And if there was no passion, this must not be love. And that dysfunctional way of thinking, I didn't even realize it, but it showed up in my life. And it wasn't until I took a step back and said, why am I even in this situation? And where did this come from? And why do I think that this is supposed to be a display of passion and or love? And I really had to start doing some soul searching and go and start dissecting my experience, which again there were 4 of us in one house, and we all took different bits and pieces from our experiences. But for me, I know that mommy daddy issues unresolved will eventually manifest if they have not already. And if you think that you don't have them, you probably have many, you just haven't identified them yet. So you probably need to do some deeper soul searching and figure out why you think a certain way, etc.
All right. Anybody else want to add to that one? What?
No, that was spot on.
Yep.
Oh, look at you. Shut him down. Shut him down. Next question. No, I'm with you on that. If you feel like you don't have any mommy daddy issues, especially if you were raised in any era between 1960 and 2019,
the crack epidemic, especially the crack cocaine,
right? If you think you don't have any mommy daddy issues, you just probably ain't looking deep enough. But you do speak about something, that germination process, where that takes that time for that seed to mature and develop, and then you see all that stuff that you didn't see happening under the ground all of a sudden comes to the surface. And as we spend less time reflecting and more time taking selfies and less time really asking ourselves these deeper questions, what you end up with is a surprise plan. It's like, oh, where'd that weed come from? And it typically comes out at an inopportune time, and it ends up costing you way more had you just gone out there, dug up that seed or dug up that root and got rid of it from the beginning. So I'm with you on that. Shut them down, JC. Shut them down. Next question. Again, all questions are for anyone. I'm not gonna even say that again. But what, if any, of the challenges have you felt helped you in life, and how have you applied them in your life if they were helpful? Some of those issues that your parents may have invested in you or implanted in you through your childhood. What, if any, of those have been actually helpful to who you are today as an adult?
I guess I can start. I'll say all of them. I learned what not to do, and I learned other options or other ways of doing things. And so I would say that when I got to a place of learning, like I said, like you said earlier, Billy, you almost have to go to a place where you're almost reckless, right? You're out there destroying things and tearing things up and playing the victim. And then you get to this point where you stop and you say, well, wait a minute, I really have to evaluate what's going on here and why I'm doing it. When I got to that space, that is when I started to take a look at the lessons that I needed to take from my parents, and the lessons or the stories I needed to just dump. And I decided what kind of woman I wanted to be go forward. Did I want to be the example of the woman that I saw in my house, or was that going to be detrimental to me as a woman? And should I then do the opposite and be the exact opposite of the woman that was in front of me, most of my life? And so I learned again how to be and how not to be. And I had both my parents weren't in the household, and there was this odd game that was played, and it really affected the way I looked at either of them. And as I got older and became a woman, I decided to go ahead and forgive them for that. But I don't have any children, but for my nieces and nephews, it was extremely important for me to keep in contact with them, something that wasn't done for me and my siblings, to show them love, to write them letters, to give them calls, to send them text messages. Again, communication that was not displayed in my household. But again, it was like I learned how to be a better person because I grew up in that dysfunctional environment. So I took the best parts and threw out the rest.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll even add to that and say that. Oh, I'm sorry, Taralyn. You want to go?
No, it's fine. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so far as absence is concerned, or that issue for me, actually, someone in the chat, Parker Wilder, kind of hit it on the nail on the head there. And the way that I looked at it was absence for me, when it came to my father, was that I was always going to be the father present for my children. And I'm a father of 3. And it was something that's so vital to me because I didn't experience that growing up, that I wanted to make sure my children never experienced that. They always had a father that was going to be there for them, thick and thin, love them, support them, and everything that they do. And also showing them the discipline and things that they need to do to become, adults that contribute positively to this world. So that was something for me that, without him being, I don't know if I would feel the same way if he was around, right? I don't know what would have happened. The fact that he wasn't there was like, okay, this is intentional. This is what I want to be. So for me, it's actually been a positive aspect of my life. That's the only way I could see it.
I like that. No, and I seen what Parker said as well. I was going to bring that in, but I'm glad you brought that in because there are some things that absence can do to drive you to be a better person. Taralyn, did you want to add something? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I definitely learned some of everything, but I think the most that I learned from the challenges that I endured from watching my mother when I was coming up, I used to think that because my father, he was so mean and selfish and all the things that he was. And I don't say that as something negative toward him. He's an imperfect person that had a journey that he went through and was probably still going through when I came along. And like all of us continues to go through. So he had his own journey and own things in his life that we experienced. Even though it impacted us, I learned as I got older that it was never about us. I learned from my mother what authentic love is and how you have to decide who you are. And no matter what happens around you, no matter who someone else is, never change who you are. So things were very difficult with him. And I remember thinking, wow, I just would never, why? Why does she put up with this? And I thought she was the weakest person in the world until I got to be older. And then I started to learn more about my father's journey and his past. And then my mother fell in love with that man and everything about that man, the struggles that he had been through, the pain and hurt that he had experienced, some things that I never knew existed. And then I found out later on, it kind of put into perspective some of the things that I experienced. And it also showed me what real love is. Real love is not just passion and what somebody looks like and the things that you do together. It's not those superficial things. It's about seeing something in a person that's bigger than all of their flaws, that's bigger than the ways that they fall short. She was on one side trying to hold together the children's relationship with this man, her marriage with this man, teach us how to be static in who we are and to do the right thing no matter what. And in all of that, I don't know how she ever had time for herself. But it wasn't until I got to be an adult that I figured out, man, she had all of that going on, still had time to teach us all of the things that we needed to know. I don't remember a time when my mother wasn't present for any and everything that went on in our life. She didn't let the challenges that she had with holding all of those things together change who she was supposed to be as a mother toward us and a wife toward him. So now, fast forward to where I am today, I can tell tons of stories about how challenging things were, all of the things that I went through. I had my experience, my sister and I had my experience as a girl, a female with my father, but then my brothers also had their experience, what it must have been like to have a man who should be excited about the first time you drive and letting you take his car to prom and all of these kind of things. But then there was this sense of competition that they had to deal with. I could talk about those things, but then again, too, those things kind of dampen and they're kind of like down at the bottom when I think about how my mother took and transformed all of those negative experiences that we still had and used those to form us, even though we didn't know that that's what she was doing. And we found out about that later. So I found out about real love. I found out about loyalty. I found out about respect for yourself and commitment and dedication to who you are and who you want to be and who you should be in this walk in life. I learned a whole lot. I'm loyal to a fault, I think, because of that experience with my mom. So would I be the woman that I am today? Would I have the understanding that I have today? Would I even be a coach today if it were not for that? I don't think so. So I wouldn't trade any of it. I wouldn't trade any of it.
Makes it the total package. Brother Gab, I seen you unmuted. Was there something you wanted to add as well?
Oh, yeah. I think in the darkness, in the absence, when I say in the darkness, in the absence of the light of my, I'm gonna stay with my father on this, man. I was raised by my mom, for the most part. Again, Dad was there, got my Christmas presents and all of that. But in the darkness of, in the absence of my dad in this case, I think there's a strength in learning to do some things for yourself, learning a certain kind of survival for yourself. Not that you are getting the best kickoff, the best start in life as a male, as a very particular, to be particular a black male, and to be even more particular a black male in America. I think our presence is so very necessary. That kickoff is like super necessary. However, survival, regardless to the fact that I didn't kind of get that, in the way I think he gave me, to be honest, in all of this, I think he gave everything he knew how to give. This is the amazing part of this, because I can identify with it within myself. And I can, at the same time that because I'm present, he's gone. I'm present. And in my own life, I can still see the same thing, the same pattern. I've gotten better. I did things that were better with my son. This is so amazing, bro. Is the fact that I said, you know what? I'm gonna be with my son. I'm gonna take him to all the football games. I'm gonna take him to all his basketball practice. I'm gonna take him to kung fu. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna cheer him on. But the personal, I was taking him somewhere else to be trained. If you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
The getting up and teaching him how to put the worm on the hook. Son, we're going to go learn this skill today. I'm going to show you how to do this today. That never was something that I received. And rarely did I give that. And now my son is 23. Good kid. Not doing bad, but I missed something. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say that it helped me to kind of get here. I did do better than my dad, but it was like a little gradual. Somebody else might say, man, you did great. You know, my life is good. Financially we're fine. He is in a place of opportunity, you know. But I feel the same distance. It's weird.
So do you think that you gave your son what you had because it was all you knew, or do you think you gave your son what you had subconsciously?
I think I gave him all I had because it was all I knew. I added some things that I didn't have. You know, like I said, I took him to every practice. Like nobody did that.
It was you.
With us, right? You walked your ass down to the field.
Right.
you know, I'll pick you up if it's cold. That kind of, it's too cold to walk back, you know. But so yeah, man, I had to survive it, is what I'm saying. I had to survive it, and I do believe in that is strength for us, along with the bad, the things that are not there. I mean, there's still something in that there's some resilience that I have to have, but it's me manning up now, trying to find the daddy in me now is at 50, after your kids are grown. And it's just not a good feeling, man. I'll just be honest with you.
It's delayed, hey, but you know it's better late than never. I'll tell you that. One of that resilience, that grit, I think that's true. I want to bring something else into the chat. Key, you already brought in what Parker Wilder said, but John Doe says it helps to be around other families. Just how more information can better inform our decisions. A variety of outside family experiences can help shape us. So no, I agree with that. I think Cousin Mo, you can actually attest to this just like I could, but I'm gonna let you attest to it. Being in the Heights and growing up in the same neighborhood and having multiple houses, multiple moms, multiple dads that we could go to, it showed you different things. Mo, can you elaborate on that with what John Doe's talking about?
Absolutely. So even on things such as discipline, what does it mean to discipline? What does it mean to chastise? What does it mean to have the authority to correct? And then to be on that receiving end and to grow up knowing that other folks can look and observe and judge your behaviors, and they had the authority invested in them to beat you. They could beat you, like all the way to the fullest extent of corporal punishment. They could beat you. But it was also access to other folks. So on the positive end, my family, there was a lot of dysfunction there. But I got a bike, and so my world expanded. That's when you would see us all up going to Cass Story, where they had the short rims where we could play basketball at, which meant what? Now you got friends, and now friends are having their experiences. They're acting out on, and you know, what their parents have told them what they can and cannot do, their influence, their expectations and such. And so we're bending the rules in our rebellion stage together. But what did it also do? When we're going over to have dinner, now I'm exposed to their their older families, their older cousins, their people as well. So not just the dysfunction that I saw in my own household, I was also privileged enough to learn from like your older sister and you know Tim Russian and his older sister Nikki was like Willie's era, and D had Mikey, but Mikey's older sister was Keisha, and so we got to learn from Keisha and beat her head in dominoes. But she used to play at the gym. And playing at the gym meant that you had exposure to all the elders that were in there because they were still dunking. Now, they were like 6 to 12 years older than us, so they went through the real drug epidemic and the real gangs a little bit more to where they could be protective of us. Their wisdom then, protect yourself. Don't get out there and be a knucklehead. You know, you stay in the house, you stay in school, put this first. You know, treat women with the best respect that you can because they'll have you back when these other cats, these other brothers won't. I mean, there was so much more that I was exposed to because my world expanded, because I got a bike. Now, yeah, it did come with the crackheads and the police and then whatever, however you view gangsters, but it also gave me access to pretty women. And those pretty women started to drive my internals into a way I wanted to dress a little bit different. I wanted to act a little bit different. I wanted to walk a little taller and puff my chest out. And I needed the correction of the men inside of that community. I needed the connection to those multiple families so that we could all come up together and learn from each other and grow together. So, oh yeah, they were all parents in a sense, but I had a mom and dad. They were there and they were absent because, you know, they were at work. But when they were absent, Del Paso Heights was a place that gave me the comfort of knowing I had the best of both worlds right there to just juxtaposition. So thanks for the chat.
Especially on High Street, you was closer to everybody. I had to walk like 4 blocks from down South Ave to get to High Street. But
you
it was
had your daddy buy you that bike, man.
That part.
I ain't gonna talk about how they bought me one and it got stolen because Tim and I rode it to the gas station off of real end. We ain't gonna go into that story, but it got stolen. I had a couple bikes. Most of them got stolen. We're just gonna leave it at that. I kind of want to transition because this has been the fastest hour I've ever had on any Intersation. I want to start transitioning because the topic is resolving mommy and daddy issues. So we've been talking about really what the issues are, how they may have impacted us. I want to start transitioning this conversation more so into the solutions and the tools that we have found in our experiences, similar to what Parker. Keep those nuggets coming, and as much as I can, I'll bring those in from the chat as well. But my next question that I want to ask, and it's a 2-part question, so anybody can jump in. But the first part of it is does medication mask the symptoms of these issues, or does it help cure them? The second portion of that question is how many of these issues do we feel could be solved with professional counseling? Which is something that I'm going to put up my hands and say, I was fortunate that my mother and my father were able to take me to when I was younger, but I know a lot of families that are not willing to go to counseling. So anybody can jump in on that one.
Counseling's always good. I'm a fan of counseling. From my experience, Black community thing, you go to a counselor or therapist, there's something wrong with you. And that's not something that you should do. And that you should do openly. But from my experience, I think it's extremely helpful. As far as medicating, I don't know. I think that's an individual thing. Me personally, I can't speak to some people do need it. For me personally, that's never been a route that I was interested in going. I try to take a more holistic approach to most things. But then again, too, that's just me. But counseling, absolutely. I think that's definitely helpful. It's a great place to start. Sometimes you think that your situation, because you're in it, you think that your situation is one way, but having someone trained who's outside of the emotional things that are going on and sometimes that tunnel vision that you can have within a situation, having that person to help you talk through some things can be very helpful. I mean, as a coach, I have several coaches and I love them. I can't imagine life without them, so it's not, and Bill, you know all about it, but it's not counseling per se, I guess, in a way it could be, but it's very helpful to have somebody on the outside to give you a different perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree. Really quick, because it just popped up. I can see it. 6-Figure Day said medicating for what things? It depends, ... This particular thing we're going to call mommy and daddy issues. We're going to stay on that thing. But you know, again, people choose medication for other different aspects. I'm not a big medication person, but
yeah,
for whatever works for you works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody was going to say something. Key, was that you?
No, I wasn't, but I mean, I can add something. I think kind of when it comes to the medicating part, I think that's dealing with the depression, right? I think that, especially in the Black community, we have this thing about depression, getting over it. You know, you better not take that medication, or you better not go talk to a counselor or a shrink or whatever the case may be. It's just something that was just like toughen up and get through it, right? I feel like that's been a common theme, but it's actually something where you are dealing with certain people that do have, you know, some type of mental illness that might need to be treated. And like Taralyn saying, the first step is counseling, right? Where they can actually probably assess and see if there's something deeper that's going on there. But me, you know, I'm definitely an advocate of counseling. Is something that I've even, you know, went through at one point in time and stage of my life. And I think that's something that's very healthy.
All right.
I would add, like, before we got married. Oh no, we were already married, but we did the counseling with the pastor to kind of understand and
Premarital.
look in the. But
Premarital
we was
counseling?
already married though. We kind of cheated the system, but yeah.
Postmarital counseling.
Yeah, postmarital counseling. Like we was into it, but it was like, hold on, we need to back up a second and get God's word on this one, because that alien that I married, and man, I don't know what kind of monster I was to be married to an alien, but yeah, we needed some counsel. We needed God's hand on that right there. So yeah, and it could also be linked to those mommy and daddy issues, right? So she has an expectation of the role she wanted me to play. I wasn't raised like that. The pimps and hustlers and gangsters was like, man, don't trust them, don't love them. Moses, you better keep doing what you're doing. And like, I didn't have too many successful marriage role models. You know, my grandmothers, my grandfathers, my mom, my dad was a pretty decent guy to accept a woman who already had a child from another man. And so my marriage statuses of aunties and uncles, and even in the community, we were like blessed to have both parents in one house. And that was a lot of matriarchy that my pops had to accept as well. We moved into one of my grandmother's homes. He moved from Louisiana to Sacramento. He was a military man, so travel was a thing that he was used to and accustomed to. And to be locked into a space where now he has to accept, you know, the matriarchy as it exists, because of economic reasons, the, you know, bigger salary when my mom was working compared to the Army. You know, they don't pay you much, but you have a set life. But once she start working, I mean, so many other determinative factors that can really mess with your mentality if you come in locked in with, you know, well, my dad was this type of person, I'm going to be this type of person. My dad was he paid the bills, so I'm going to pay the bills. And then I got a wife who was working on her doctorate degree. So this alien, like I said, is she's killing it. She's breaking all stereotypes. You know, I went to Morehouse, first to graduate. That's not common. And so the things that my father did that were still, that I thought I aligned to, I wasn't able to continue to walk that light. I needed a new modern way of thinking about relationships and being adaptable. How do we make this matriarchy work in our favor? How do we still have the power in our relationships? I'm the head of household, take care of my family, love my wife. But yeah, sometimes you got to get some postmarital counseling.
Hey, postmarital in the thick of the battle.
Yeah. Can I add on?
Absolutely, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah. The counseling, I'm not familiar with the kind of sickness where people actually need to take medication for their depression. But I would say that counseling, being around those male figures who have figured it out, who are displaying, you know, fatherhood roles to their children, getting around some masculine energy, man, is something that I have learned on YouTube and social media. Being in masculine spaces, I withdrew from the community. So me and my ills from what I didn't pick up from certain male roles, I took that and withdrew from society, me, my wife, and my children. Mm-hmm. So there was no constant learning. There was no constant exchange. You know, I took whatever I had of strength, whatever I had of insecurity, brought them right into my house with my
and
family.
locked them in.
And
locked them in with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And then became embarrassed at certain results from me doing it. And so, I would say to teach in terms of going forward for people that in terms of teaching, go ahead and get that counseling, even if it needs to be professional. I've been to counseling a few times in my life. I do have that stigma of telling people my business because it's embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? So it takes some strength to do that. So I buy, books to try to help myself, self-help, books.
You self-medicate.
Yeah, I'm self-medicating, man. It was a book here that I had. In fact, it's called, I Don't Want to Talk About It, by Terrence Real. And it's about male depression and the things that people go through. And sometimes it's pretty comforting to see that people go through some real stuff and to understand that this is a very normal thing that goes on in this life of ours. So again, counseling, getting around people who are doing the things that you think need to be done so that you can kind of pick up on that.
Yeah. One of the things that we don't realize that stigma, that shame, and I probably will say this on many more Intersations to come, that shame hides the solution, because either we bunker down and lock ourselves in to where no information can get in. Now you got to go through tons of books to get the information. Whereas if you had a circle of wise counsel or a circle of competent individuals who are really focused on solutions, you'd be able to say, hey, look, this is what I'm dealing with. Anybody got something that can possibly help with that. And so there's that shame. What it does is it hides you from the solution. And then when if you find the solution, it hides that solution from others, because now we don't want to be identified with the stigma that comes with that challenge or that issue that we took into our adulthood life that now we're ashamed of and don't want people to know about. We want it to be our little secret on the hush.
Yep. And that's always been something within the Black community. What happens in your house stays in your house.
Right.
And that's a lot of what it is. It's everybody. I guess we were inadvertently taught to pretend as though we don't have real stuff going on that we need to talk about. And the truth of the matter is, once you get to be older, you learn that exactly the thing, especially with First Row and what we stand for around these parts. When you talk about solutions, the main thing that you don't want anybody to know about is the one thing that would save more lives than what you ever know. Because once you start to talk about those things, you realize that you're not alone. My grandmother used to say, I carried that stick and threw it away. You just picked it up and it's new to you. And that's the truth. There are so many different things. Isn't that the truth? There's so many different things in this life that we all experience. And there are different pathways that we take to get to that same stick. But at the end of the day, somebody carried that stick before you. That's not a new stick.
Right.
It's only new to you if you decide that you want to pick it up, have a bad experience, throw it away, and act like you never had that stick before. The more we start to talk about the things, the main things that we don't want to talk about, that's all of a sudden the moment when you appeal to and draw somebody to you that's in that space that you threw that stick away. They picked up your stick, but now you're talking about it. And now you're bearing testimony and being a witness to what it's like to get on the other side of that. And you can even share how to navigate things while you're holding that stick, because you're going to drop it. You know what I'm saying? Sharing that's what we have to learn to do as a community. We have to start to learn that there's no need in having shame from experiencing life. That's all it is. Those experiences are meant to shape you and to turn you into someone who could be a vessel of service for the next person. The only way you can serve with other people is if they know your story. If they know something about you, you'd be surprised when you start talking how much you have in common with so many other people around you. And that's one of the things that my pathway has allowed me to be able to do. I find myself just kind of like how Gab said, I used to didn't want to tell my business. Now I understand that it's not my business to keep. It's my business to share, because when I share it, now I'm giving somebody a shortcut past what I had to go through.
And you bring that accountability to it as well. When you
Absolutely.
share it, all of a sudden you're accountable to it. And it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, I can't go around hitting people with this stick no more because they know I got it. And I already said I need to set it down. You're right.
Yep.
I feel like everybody hit on all of my bullet points here. So, I mean, the only thing that I had to add, because seriously, all the way from stigmas, shame, embarrassment, counseling, the secrets, right? Those were all points that you guys hit on. And then the only point that I wanted to kind of talk about was the medication piece. That was one area where we don't do a lot of medication because we don't do a lot of counseling because we don't do a lot of talking as Black people, let's be honest, right? But there was one time when I did decide that I was going to try to seek help. And the first thing they wanted to do was put me on medication.
You don't need help. Just take this.
And I asked, I said, well, are there any alternatives? Or that, well, it sounds like you're dealing with depression. Well, no, shoot, Sherlock, did you hear what I just told you about my life? But so I thought, all right, they got the PhDs, let's try this. So I tried it, and guess what? Still had depression. Why? Because it couldn't deal with the trauma of my life. A magic pill could not fix my memories. And that's what I was depressed from, were the replay of memories and not being able to understand them or decipher them. So it wasn't until a really good friend of mine who runs a YouTube channel called First Row back in contact with me. He and I began having these conversations. The conversations led to daily conversations, and it was being able to open up and share some of those personal experiences and share some of that trauma and share stories where, guess what? I didn't have to take a pill anymore. Well, first of all, the pill wasn't helping anyway, but I didn't have to take it, and I didn't have the need or the urge or the want for it, because just talking about my issues and being able to bounce them off somebody who was non-biased, non-judgmental, and could give some really good feedback, make some really good suggestions, helped. So I would say this: if you're ashamed and if you're embarrassed and if you don't want to go and talk to a professional, try talking to someone who's just close to you, someone who you can trust with information. Start there, because we all need a starting place, right? And it's scary to go out and do a Google search for a psychiatrist or a psychologist for that matter, and you don't know where to start. Just look inside your own family and see if there's someone who you can speak to, a grandmother, a godmother. I had a godmother who was amazing, or a really good friend who you can talk to and just start figuring out how you can start untangling some of these mommy and daddy issues before you go out and get medicated. If you need medication, all the power to you, take that medication. But I would say start with the counseling and talking to someone first. And then if that doesn't work, then go to medication if possible.
Yeah, or post-marital counseling.
Or post-marital counseling.
that part.
Well, I like that you're already jumping into kind of some of the solutions, JC. So I want everybody to be able to answer this question because we're at 1 hour and 13. For those issues that you have been able to identify and you have created solutions for, are there ways that are more effective than others to resolve those issues, or that have been more effective than others to resolve those issues? JC, you gave a very great example. And what ways have you found work not only best for you, but in the times where you've been the person that somebody has come to for advice? What ways do you find yourself sharing on how to resolve those issues? I know one from my cousin Mo, but we can go with anybody who wants to go first, besides JC.
I would say first and foremost, step outside of your comfort zone. Whenever you're talking about dealing with these types of issues, the first thing that I think I used to want to do was stay within myself. I didn't like to be challenged to do something that was uncomfortable. So whenever you're trying to face something that you want to change, the first thing you have to do is understand that you're really not changing if you're still comfortable. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. Change means do something different, So if you're moving and you're doing something different, you're supposed to be uncomfortable. And what should push you to continue to move is because as long as you're uncomfortable and you're moving, that's going to challenge you to dig deep, become accountable, and start to organize some steps to get to the other side of the discomfort. That's where the next level of evolution lies. It's going to lay for you. So it's a process, but it shouldn't feel good. However, it should be something that's exciting at the same time. And I know I'm saying it shouldn't feel good, but exciting. Absolutely, yes, it should be exciting, because on the other side of change, that is going to be a new space in life for you, where you're going to see things completely and totally different. And now it's a new space to grow from. So I think that's what I've learned. And even during the process with my career, the work that you and I do together, Billy, lots of things that we have going on. There's a whole lot going on, you know, so I'm a living testimony of everything that I teach. And that is, I don't care how uncomfortable it is. I know what it's like to be comfortable where I am. That just means I'm going to stay there. It's time to up the ante. It's time to do what I got to do to get to the other side. So that's what I would say. Embrace discomfort and let it take you to the next level, because the only place to go beyond discomfort is up.
Right.
That's it.
True. Key, what you got? You're unmuted.
Yeah, I'd say information. Information is a good solution. You know, like Gab was saying earlier, you know, the books that he's read, I think that's really vital. I've learned a lot through that. Rather, you know, certain type of subjects that you want to go on, it, you know, is definitely up to you. But getting information and then applying that information, right? You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, knowledge. There's power in knowledge, but not until you apply it. So once you gain that knowledge and then you start applying it, rather if you are trying to be a more, I would say, present father, or being someone that's a little bit more balanced with work life and, you know, and with your children and so forth. It's like reading those books and then applying the information that you're learning. I think is a good way to find solutions. I think actually someone in the comments stated earlier that there's so much information that nothing is really new on this earth. I think Taralyn even mentioned that too. She said, you know, you just picked up that stick, you know, one that I dropped, you know. So there's so much information out there that we are able to just grab it and search and look for it. You know, all we have to do is be resourceful, even if we don't have the people around us that can, you know, give that guidance. You know, there's with this internet age and all this technology that's out there, there's really almost no reason to not be resourceful in finding a way to become uncomfortable, to get to that point or that state in your life that you want to change.
All right. Brother Gab, what do you got? Solutions.
Kind of a repeat of the same. The main thing that I want to sing and tell the what's the saying go sing and tell whatever is to get the courage to help yourself, man. I was you wouldn't believe how difficult it could be to get the courage to help yourself, and because we've been so, for men, we've been so macho and all of our lives, and kind of showing this false display of what it means to be strong, and neglecting ourselves in places where it matters most. And you know, I can't encourage brothers enough to, hey man, go get the help that you need. You know, humble yourself even more to go and get the help you need to, you know, to step into that space that will make you feel more secure as a human being. That is the most common need, is for one to feel secure in whatever nature has made them, you know, male or female. You want to be confident in your ability to express just that, you know, and it's often just a difficult place that you can find yourself. You know, the weakness of yourself being exposed, that mirror is it's pretty frightening, man. You know. So it's pretty frightening. You know, I hate to sound like the sucker on the panel, man, but you know, I've had to face myself quite a bit, and honestly speaking, it came in the later years. You know, after the fist fights, after I thought I was being strong somewhere in life, after I cussed you out and, you know, thought I won something and thought I was preserving my masculinity. And now you know, we're still here left to deal with the real issues of ourselves, parenting and things that's been passed on, you know, from a pretty tragic history. Black folks in America is stuff that we got to overcome, you know, still sometimes, you know, it's not all gone. Some of that stuff is very deeply rooted in our psychology and passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah. Word. Cousin Mo, what you got? I think I got a theory on what you got, but I want to hear what you got.
Sex and a sandwich.
Hey,
I knew it was coming.
Hey, you know it's coming, man. Sex and a sandwich, man. You got to understand what your value is that you bring to the table, whether it's tremendous or whether it's just be real with. Like right now, when you've re-examined yourself, you might want to beat yourself up. I say don't. Even if it seems small, it could be worth the world to somebody else because it's your genuine, and they could love that genuine. So even my kids love my sandwiches. They're the best, I promise you. But that started off as something from my wife. I couldn't cook. I wasn't going to clean because, you know, my dad didn't clean. So no, I'm not cleaning up. What can I do? I can do great sex and I can do a great sandwich. Having known my value prop, I'm able to help her even love me better. So it's going to come. I speak more from the relationship sense. I've only been married 12 years, but in my limited experience right now, the thing that's helping me get through and resolve some of the issues that I had, you know, with my disappointment that I felt towards my parenting, as a parent myself, towards what I experienced as a child in my parenting. They were supposed to protect me from this and all of that. I'm old now. And now I'm living and I'm experiencing life. I'm on a journey. I understand that. And that journey is going to come with its ups and downs. I'm finding my balance, trying to be a little bit more smooth as I connect with brothers and sisters who are also on their journey. And they're giving me perspectives that are just blowing my mind, like trauma-based traditions. I used to call it intergenerational poverty, but trauma-based traditions. We had all been poor, so class played a heck of a role, and people were just really living check by check, you know, and never enough money at the end of their month. And with all of this pressure that they had, my parents is I can give them that. Now, if they watching, salute to y'all. If they watching the restream, you know, I could say they was coming from the deep South and coming from Sacramento. But for me, my big takeaway for those, and it seems like it's just a laughable thing, but it's serious because it really speaks to the symbolism of understanding your value and putting some real praise on it. That sandwich is good, man. And that sex is good. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, baby. JC,
hey, thanks for keeping it real, bro.
That's it.
I'm sorry you have to go after sex and a sandwich, JC, but what do you have?
Behind sex and the sandwich, I never like going after milk, so I don't know why you would do this. Are you just looking, what are you looking for? A solution or?
Just a solution. So you already mentioned starting with someone for counseling perspective. You said starting with someone that you know loves you, you love, they care about you and those things. Starting maybe in a smaller step, not necessarily feeling like you have to make the first big leap from not ever telling anybody my business to now I'm gonna tell a stranger I found on Yelp my business. So that's one solution you provided, but I didn't know if there was any other solution.
I'll say this. Part of.
Go ahead.
It looks like my internet's freezing, so I apologize. In addition to the steps that I provided earlier, I will say that one thing that you can start doing is just some research on your history.
Hopefully we didn't lose you. She said research on her history, and then she froze.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, the last thing we heard you say was research on your history, and then you just froze.
Okay, sorry. Again, there's just thunderstorm out here, so the internet keeps freezing up on me.
Okay, no problem.
I was saying that do your history. That should absolutely be the first step. When you do history on African Americans and slavery, and how we were treated and what we went through and what your great-great-grandparents experienced, what your great-grandparents experienced, what they passed down from what you eat on Sunday dinners to what you cook at Thanksgiving, to how you talk to each other, to how males and females interact in the Black community, to how parents speak to children, how children speak to parents. If you do some history and you do your research, you find out that there's a reason for all of it, and things start to fall in place and you start to understand your history, and it helps you to better understand and empathize with your parents and your grandparents. I like to, the last marriage that I really saw that was, I guess you could say, successful was my grandparents. But then when I got to a certain age, I found out that that wasn't really true. I mean, they were married, yes, but they was barely married, and it was like, what? Shocking. And it was, again, that saving face mentality that we have, is keeping secrets and not telling anyone. And you don't find out until somebody dies, till granddaddy's, in the casket, and you find out the granddaddy had other kids, and then your whole life is blown up, and there's so many secrets. But when I understood our history as Black people in America, there was nothing that could shock me anymore regarding my family secrets. I had heard it all, I had seen it all, and it made sense to me. And it was all trauma-based traditions passed down from generation to generation. And it really helped me to empathize with my parents, whom I had a dislike for quite some time, who I was angry, I was disappointed, I was hurt. I saw everybody else getting these opportunities and support from their family, and I didn't, and how could they? And I was such a victim until I looked into my history and I understood my parents' history. And then I started asking my parents questions about their childhood. Then it all made sense, baby, when I found out about their childhoods as well, because we so often see our parents as adults, but they were once children too. They were once little children too. And uncovering that and understanding the history from Black culture to your immediate family was so important for me to start understanding where things came from, and then to start really doing some soul searching and figuring out how I can ensure that I'm not passing that dysfunction along.
All right, so history. Get them on them history books, not the ones that are written in the school system. I'm gonna just throw it out there anyway.
That part.
That part, because those are supposedly changing. But anyway, the one thing, or the solution that I wanted to bring to the table, and it's all these are great solutions from everybody. I definitely am rocking with all these solutions, but the solutions that stand out to me the most and have helped me personally the most have been, one, honesty, and that's honesty with yourself. If you're going to try to ignore an issue and act like it doesn't exist, you're mentally at some point, if you cuss Gab, I could relate 100%. If you cuss somebody out that you're supposed to be loving affectionately, and you think you won something, that's an issue. And so you got to be honest with yourself when that issue arises and say, okay, what is causing this flare up? And you might find out that it's you not dealing with the issue. It can't always be the other person. Well, she knows how to push my buttons, or he knows how to push my buttons. No, sometimes what's causing the flare up is you. So being willing to be honest with myself about my shortcomings, that has been something that has been very helpful in dealing with the mommy and daddy issues that I have. The other aspect of it is being able to forgive not only my parents, but also forgive myself. Because just like Moses was saying, when you look at all that they were going through, like JC was saying, when you look at the history that our people have gone through, when you look at these things, it all of a sudden comes from this capsulated experience that you're having to like, well, wait a minute, this is much bigger than who I am as just the solitary individual that I am. This is about things that have been handed down because they have not been dealt with and have not been addressed. So I'm going to forgive that person for not handing it down to me. But now, because I'm forgiving them, I'm going to forgive myself and now work to address that situation so that I don't perpetuate that and hand it down to other generations. Now, are there things that I've handed down to my children? Absolutely. Are there situations that I'm probably in even today that would probably be relation of mommy and daddy issues? Probably. I don't know if that's absolutely or not, because I'm still kind of ignorant to those. But overall, the forgiveness of myself has allowed me to really look at the pressures and the stresses that my family was under, my parents were under in raising me, and feeling like at times there was times where they didn't like me. And when I look at my ass, hell, it makes sense for somebody to not like you when you're doing stupid things that are either costing them money or causing them unnecessary stress. I get it. So being able to forgive them and say, okay, maybe they didn't handle that in the right light. How can I handle it better? And so what I find as a father today of 3 sons, I'm always looking at how can I try to revamp, rescope, and reshape how I'm approaching my sons. I have a son here who's 16 who lives with me right now, and it's very challenging to keep him motivated and engaged in school because I'm on him about his grades. But there was something that you said, Gab, that I constantly replay, that everything in life can't be about your children earning validation. Like that goes back to that slave mentality. Oh, massa, look what I did. Well, at some point, do you love your children or not? So again, honesty and forgiveness are my number 1 and 2 solutions when it comes to resolving mommy and daddy issues. If you can't be honest about the issue, you'll never resolve it. You'll make some half-ass attempt to resolve it, and then after that, it's going to fall because you're not going to really be invested in creating a solution that's going to be sustained. We are at 1 hour and 30. I told you it was going to be 1 hour and 30. We're going to go a little bit over. I want to give everybody on the panel an opportunity to give one key takeaway. If there is one key thing from tonight's conversation that you would want the live viewers or those who will be watching on the replay to take away tonight from tonight's conversation, what would that be? And we're going to go the same way we did it from the beginning, from left to right. Brother Key, we starting with you.
One takeaway is really being self-aware, finding out who you truly are, what those mommy and daddy issues are, and being aware of those, and whatever steps that might take for you to be aware of them, if it's counseling or getting some type of help from those that you love or that love you, who are close to you, is definitely a vital step and takeaway that I found here.
All right, like it. Brother Gab, you next. What you got?
The takeaway is to face the issues. Something you just said it, to own your stuff, to own your faults, take ownership of them, and be courageous in tackling the issues. Do more of this, what we're doing now, because as we get comfortable, this is our first meeting, and not many people are willing to, go out on a limb and share their experiences on a first meet up live in front of the world. But as we move forward, more and more things will get, revealed. This is just a groundbreaking kind of meet, an ice-breaking type meeting, where it's an opportunity to kind of feel this group for the first time. But I guarantee you that over time, going back and forth, and some, me looking at if y'all have YouTube channels and stuff, and that's something else I hope I get to learn, who has YouTube channels here. If you don't mind, everybody who's here on my behalf, because I sent the email out and I see quite a few people that follow me. I don't know if they were already following you. Please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, First Row. Moses Jenkins. Those are the two that I know. Moses hasn't started his content yet, but yeah, definitely try and keep up with these guys. They were definitely a part of my alternative strategy. I've been on the blackosphere of YouTube, and so
all day.
Yeah, all day, and I don't put that down. I'm unashamed. I got all type of content on my channel. I talk shit over there sometimes, so it's a multitude of I had to put that plug in there, brother.
I'm not worried about it.
Pretty dynamic, But so we do a little bit of everything, but I want to diversify. I want to, meet the family, man, diversify and get things done. Everybody has so much that they can bring to the table if we can get the communication right. I'm big on communication and, having the right posture, having the right etiquette that will make somebody comfortable enough to help you with your issues if they have something to offer. You know, you don't want to become repellent to help, you know. So, you know, with that said, thank you for this opportunity and allowing me a space where I can come and get that diversified content. I'm very pleased to meet your panel members. It's been a more than cordial conversation. Brother Mose, it's good to see you again, man. Good to meet everyone else. And please share your channel before we leave, if you have like YouTube channels.
I will. I'll make sure everybody does it.
Yeah.
All right, JC, what do you got? One takeaway.
Oh, I gotta unmute real quick. All right, so my one takeaway will be super quick and to the point. Don't get caught up in things that you did or did not receive in life. Start questioning everything and stop operating in dysfunction. Boom.
Boom. All right. Moshi over here trying to put some pressure on you. You know you're long-winded, brother Mo. Moses, what do you got, cousin Mo?
So, you know, we're working up to that 4-course meal, that steak. And that's when everything that we've ever desired is right there on the table for us and we can just eat. Right now, as we self-identify, as we reflect, as we start to enjoy the journey. I mean, even through the ups and downs, through the mommy-daddy issues, through the relationships, through the work, the pro-black or ADOS or reparations and politics, whatever else hits us, we know that we have to enjoy this journey. And so my big takeaway, you see this panel, there's the feminine energy, there's the mature energy, there's the, you know, I got that jovial spirit, a little bit long-winded, but you have to have a diverse panel. You have to be willing to open up. And that key takeaway that's going to stick with me, that ain't your test. That's somebody else's story right there. You got to, that ain't your business. How she said, that ain't your business. You got to be willing to share so that you can help heal. And we got a whole bunch of people that we can be healing. But if we're just selfishly holding on to those things because we call them issues, this is my mommy or my daddy issue that I have, then we are denying those other folks the opportunity to grow with us as they are also on these journeys. So big up cousin Ro, Gab Talk Media, man. Assalamu alaikum, brother. I know you are. I can feel your spirit, brother. I know you are. You can say less. And Taralyn, always, I don't know her enough, but JC, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say it, man. And then real estate.
Key.
That is the real estate, brother, man. You looking swole, man. That's what I'm gonna put when I get my taxes back, man. I'm gonna give me a chest and some arms. I'm gonna work on it though. Peace to the
family. Peace, cousin Mo. Taralyn, what do you got? Key takeaway from the night.
Key takeaway from tonight for me is, come on, y'all. We have to embrace our imperfection. Okay, imperfection serves a purpose. And I think that a lot of what we talked about tonight, a whole plethora of issues. But at the end of the day, they are all some pieces of things that have shaped a lot of things that may be imperfect about us. But when you embrace your imperfection and know that imperfection serves a purpose, so very necessary to crafting exactly who we want to be and enabling us to get where we want to go in life, you know. So embracing those imperfections, forgiveness for yourself. Everybody is worthy. We always talk about forgiving other people, but sometimes you can replay a lot of the things that you've been through that you're not too happy about or not too proud of because you haven't forgiven yourself. When you know that it's okay to be imperfect, because in order for you to find some level of balance and, if you will, perfection in your life, you have to have screwed up. That has to have happened. Let it go. Move forward. Be uncomfortable so that you can get to the next level and realize who you were designed to be and what you were put here for.
I like that. All right. Well, before we let everybody go, because Gab asked me to tell you guys who has a YouTube channel, who does not, we go. Key has a YouTube channel called First Row. He does content every other Monday on a show called Keeping It Real Estate. He's a real estate agent. He drops some gems and jewels. He just did one yesterday, so there will be another one and not next week, but the week following. That'll be the first show.
Can you have him type in the chat so that I can grab his channel?
Yeah, it's here. It's here at First Row. He does content on this channel.
It's on the first row. Yeah.
See, the way you diversify, I just put everybody, whoever wants to be here, who has content on this particular network. So the first row is a network of people who are trying to promote growth, inspiration, and solutions. So you can find him here, or you can email him at key, K-E-Y, at firstrow.com. JC doesn't have a channel, but she's always welcome to come to First Row and hang out whenever she wants to. Cousin Mo has a channel, but he doesn't post content yet, but I'm still trying to get him to post some content on his own on First Row, so we're going to be working on that. Taralyn, she also is going to be an upcoming content producer on the First Row. And if you would like to contact her, her contact information is Coach.Taralyn at firstrow.com. I'm noticing a trend here. And if you don't know how to spell that, that's 1ST as in Thomas, W-R-O-E. So she has 9 in the 5-minute reframe. So I can't wait to start seeing that content to be able to indulge in that as well. Also, Taralyn, we'll leave it for at the end. So we'll leave something for y'all special at the end, just in case you make it to the credits. But for every intersation that I do, I like to provide what I call tools for the first row. So the reason the name of this network is First Row is because when I was younger, I had a business mentor who taught me that the people who sit on the first row, they make the most money and they get the most information. Why? Because there is no distraction between them and the person who is presenting that information to them. So that is where the First Row was birthed out of. The name First Row was birthed out of. It's a play on my last name, but it was birthed out of that concept that I was taught at a very young professional age. And so when I'm creating this content or creating the questions, I start putting down tools that are helping me to form the content and the questions, the direction that I want to see the conversation go into. So I have tonight about 5 tools for you when it comes to resolving mommy and daddy issues that I think will help you. And I'm going to be really brief with them tonight so I can get you guys to your loved ones for those who are on the East Coast. So the very first tool that I came up with when developing this content was to seek to understand the issue in its entirety. And that goes a lot to what was said tonight. Understanding the historical of it, understanding the situation of it for your parents, understanding the situation of it for yourself, and then understanding where you're at today. And when you understand that issue in its entirety, you're able to not just simply trim off the tips of the issue. You're able to actually get down to the root, to uproot the issue and get it out of your life, or uproot it so that it can be seen and exposed by somebody who is skilled or has the expertise to deal with it. So that's the first tool. The second tool that I came up with goes right into the parents, is forgive your parents. If you have parents that truly love you, their intent was never to implant issues that would take away from your happiness, take away from your ability to function well in the professional workplace, in the personal work, in the personal space. They would have never given you these things if they truly loved you. And some of them gave you these things again because they were handed down. What did you say? The trauma-based traditions. They were handed down to them as trauma-based traditions, and they didn't know how to deal with them. So forgive your parents, because one day you're going to find yourself, like Key said, saying the same things that your parents said. And you're like, wait a minute, why do I sound like my daddy? Why do I sound like my mama when I'm saying these things to my children? So forgive them, because they were operating based on the information that they had. And whether or not they seeked out additional information to be better, they did the best they could with what they had inside of them. So that's the second tool that I came up with. The third tool that I came up with was be honest about your willingness to resolve the issue. You will never resolve an issue that you're not serious about resolving. You may say you're going to resolve an issue, but until you're honest about your willingness to resolve it, you will not put in the work necessary to get the solution in motion and to get it in place to actually break the habitual behavior. So that was the third tool that I came up with. The fourth tool, is who you are or who you become cannot be everybody else's fault. At some point, you got to bring it in to you. Like Brother Gab said, his father's not here any longer. And now he has to look at himself as not what just did my father give me, who do I want to be? And so you're either going to become who you want to become, or you're going to become who you want to become. It can't be everybody else made you become something. Yes, there are people that have maybe given us deficiencies in love and deficiencies in patience and the wrong tools to handle conflict, or the right tools to handle love. However, who we choose to become, at the end of the day, it is based solely on the choices that we have made over the course of our lives. And that is good, bad, and ugly. And then the last tool that I came up with, and it was something that you said very early in the conversation, JC, that's why you're my friend, was unresolved issues get recycled. And what I mean by that is you may think that you don't have to deal with it, but if it doesn't recycle in your life and you have a seed, or you have nieces and nephews or children that you are interacting with during their malleable stages of life, that issue is going to get recycled somewhere. So it may not turn up in your waste, in your landfill, but it might turn up in somebody else's landfill. So don't send trash down the pipeline. Be willing to deal with these issues and not ignore them, so that you can be a beacon of light to the next generation and not some toxic pollutant of their lives. So those are the 5 tools that I came up with coming up with this content. Again, I'll go over them really briefly. Seek to understand the issue in its entirety. Forgive your parents. Be honest about your willingness to resolve the issues. Who you are or who you become cannot be everyone else's fault. And lastly, unresolved issues get recycled. So I want to thank you guys, all of you guys, for being on tonight. Gab, I didn't shout out your channel. If you haven't been on Gab's channel, his channel is Gab Talk Media. Gab, can you please put that in the chat feed so that those who are interested in following you can follow you. I appreciate all the viewers from Gab coming over tonight to rock with us, kept the chat popping. Sorry I couldn't get to everything in the chat. Normally it's like a lot more tame in the chat, but I like that you guys were like getting it in. So my applaud to the chat for you guys dropping jewels and sharing gems and asking questions. I always like when people are involved and engaged. I want to thank again each and every one of the panel guests, Key, Gab, JC, Cousin Mo, and Taralyn, for being on tonight. The next time that we will actually be live on the first row will be tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I guess I got to start doing different time zones. But that'll be for the Wednesday word. It's a much shorter format, and that will be on being intentional, or be intentional. If you want to know what that's about, tune in with us live. We're still here. Well, tune in with me live, I guess, but tune in with us live. Get involved in the chat again. It's a good time that we have here. Other than that, I want to give two special announcements. One, Taralyn will actually be running an Intersation next week. Normally, I run all the Intersations, but Taralyn has convinced me or talked to me into somehow, way or another, that I need to do an Intersation and not be the moderator. So she is going to be the moderator, and I will actually be the Intersation guest. Topic is pending, and so whatever she says it's going to be is what it will be. But hopefully you guys can tune in for that next week on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then last but not least, there actually is a book promotion that's going on, and it's supposed to end on Friday. It's for the book Modern Day Mentor by the author Damian K. Rowe. That is actually my big brother. He's going to be releasing a book, on April 30th. And the pre-sale actually was supposed to end on the 28th. But what he has done is extended the offer for first row listeners to be able to pre-order that book. If you are interested in pre-ordering that book, it's a book on mentorship. A lot of the things that we talked about tonight, mothers and fathers missing in the household or not giving the right examples, mentorship is what has helped me get through those things. And so I believe that Modern Day Mentor is going to be something that will help in not just the aspect of the personal, but also in the aspect of the professional, being that a lot of our parents were working class parents, but didn't have the ability to bring us to work with them to show us what work ethic looked like. So if you're interested in that, if you send an email to moderndaymentor@firstrow.com, you will have until March 31st to put that pre-order in, and then you'll get that for a reduced price, free shipping, and an actual autograph on that book. So if you're interested, again, that's moderndaymentor@firstrow.com. A lot going on First Row. If you're interested in growth, make sure you tune in live. I want to give the panel one more time a chance to say good evening to the people, and then we're going to go ahead and sign on out for the night.
Good evening.
Good evening, y'all. Take it easy.
Adios.
All right. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button. And when you click it, click the bell so you're notified when we're live on the first row. As always, if you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. We're happy to engage with you in the comments up to the first week. We're happy to engage with you in the chat. But until the next time, one love, peace, and thanks for sitting on the first row.
Peace.
Peace.